My name is Raven, I am 26 years old, and 3 months ago I discovered that my entire family had been planning my exclusion from our grandfather's will reading. My sister Melody had convinced our parents that I did not deserve any inheritance because I was not truly family. What they did not know was that I had been recording every conversation, documenting every betrayal, and building a case that would expose secrets buried for decades. The family that rejected me was about to learn the true meaning of consequences. But before I reveal how I turned their own weapons against them, I want to know where you are watching from tonight. Are you Team Justice or Team Forgiveness? Hit that like button if you believe karma always finds a way, and subscribe because this family drama has twists that will leave you speechless. Trust me, you will want to see how this unfolds. The betrayal started on a Tuesday morning in October when I accidentally walked into my childhood home and overheard my sister Melody on the phone with our mother. I had driven from my apartment across town to pick up some old photo albums for a work presentation about family businesses. Our family owned a successful chain of bakeries that my grandfather had built from nothing, and I was preparing a case study for my marketing firm. I used my key quietly, not wanting to wake anyone, when I heard Melody's voice carrying from the kitchen. She was speaking in that particular tone she reserved for serious conversations, the one that made my stomach clench with anxiety even as a child. "Mom, I am telling you, Raven does not belong at that will reading," she was saying. Grandfather always favored her because she reminded him of grandmother Sarah, but she is not really part of this family legacy. She never worked in the bakeries like we did. She went off to college and became some corporate marketing person instead of staying to help build what he created. My blood turned to ice water in my veins. I pressed myself against the hallway wall, my heart hammering so loudly I was certain she would hear it. "But honey," came my mother's voice through the speakerphone, "your grandfather specifically mentioned wanting Raven to inherit the original bakery location. He said she had the vision to modernize the business." "That is exactly the problem." Melody's voice grew sharper. "She will come in with her fancy marketing ideas and destroy everything that makes our bakeries special. She will turn them into some generic corporate chain." Dad agrees with me completely. "We talked about it last night after you went to bed." The words hit me like physical blows. My father, who had taught me to knead dough when I was barely tall enough to reach the counter, who had proudly shown me off to customers as his little business partner, he was part of this conspiracy against me. "What exactly are you proposing?" my mother asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. "We convince grandfather that Raven is not committed to the family business. We tell him about how she never visits the bakeries anymore, how she missed the last 3 family business meetings because of her corporate job. We make him see that leaving her anything would be a mistake." "Melody, I do not know about this. Your grandfather is not easily swayed once he has made up his mind. He is 87 years old, Mom. His memory is not what it used to be. If we all consistently tell him the same story about how Raven has abandoned the family business, he will start to believe it. Trust me, I have been working on this for months." Months? She had been plotting against me for months. "And what about the other issue?" My mother's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "You mean about Dad not being Raven's biological father?" The world tilted sideways. I gripped the wall to keep from falling, my photo albums crashing to the floor with a sound that seemed to echo through the entire house. "Melody? Was that you?" my mother's voice called through the phone. I heard my sister's footsteps approaching the hallway. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. I stood there, surrounded by scattered photographs of what I had believed was my family, staring at the woman I had called sister my entire life. "Raven?" Melody's face went white. "How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough," I managed to whisper. "Long enough to hear everything." She tried to recover quickly, switching to damage control mode. "Look, you were not supposed to find out this way. We were going to tell you eventually, but you decided to use it as leverage to steal my inheritance first? It is not stealing if it was never rightfully yours." The mask slipped completely off her face now, revealing something cold and calculating that I had never seen before. You think you deserve grandfather's bakery because you wrote some business proposals in college? I have been working in those kitchens since I was 14 years old. I know every recipe, every supplier, every regular customer. You show up twice a year for family dinners and think that makes you qualified to inherit a business? I show up twice a year because every time I try to be more involved, you and Dad find ways to exclude me, I shot back. Every suggestion I make gets shot down. Every idea I offer gets dismissed. I stopped trying because you made it clear I was not welcome. Because your ideas were terrible. You wanted to add gluten-free options and fancy coffee drinks. You wanted to update the logo and create social media accounts. You wanted to change everything that makes our bakery special. I wanted to help the business grow instead of watching it slowly die because you refused to adapt to changing times. Melody laughed, but there was no humor in it. Well, none of that matters now, does it? Because grandfather is going to change his will. Dad has already scheduled a meeting with him for this Friday. By next week, you will be completely written out of any inheritance, and there will be nothing you can do about it. I looked down at the photographs scattered around my feet. Pictures of birthday parties and holiday gatherings, family vacations and business celebrations. In every single one, I was smiling, genuinely happy to be part of what I thought was my loving family. Now I understood that I had been living in a carefully constructed illusion. Does Dad know I heard this conversation? I asked quietly. Not yet. But I am going to call him as soon as you leave. And grandfather? Does he know about? I could not bring myself to say the words. About your real parentage? Not yet. But that information might become relevant depending on how you choose to handle this situation. The threat was clear. Stay quiet and accept being disinherited, or they would destroy my relationship with the one family member who had always truly loved me. I bent down and gathered up the scattered photographs, my hands shaking slightly. As I straightened up, I looked my sister directly in the eyes. You know what, Melody? You are absolutely right about one thing. I have not been involved enough in the family business. But I think it is time for that to change. I walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Melody? Next time you plan to have a conversation about destroying someone's life, you might want to make sure all the windows are closed. You never know who might be listening. The confusion on her face told me she had not yet realized the implications of her carelessness. But she would soon enough. I drove straight to my apartment in a daze, my mind reeling from everything I had just learned. The man I had called Dad for 26 years was not my biological father. My sister had been plotting against me for months. My parents were planning to manipulate my elderly grandfather into disinheriting me. The family business I had dreamed of modernizing and expanding would be lost to me forever. But as I sat in my car outside my building, something shifted inside me. The initial shock and hurt began crystallizing into something much more dangerous, cold, calculated determination. I had spent my entire career in marketing and public relations, specializing in crisis management and reputation repair. I knew how to research, how to build compelling narratives, and how to present evidence in ways that were impossible to ignore. If my family wanted to play games with inheritance and family loyalty, they had chosen to battle against someone uniquely equipped to fight back. My first stop was my laptop. I needed to understand the legal landscape I was dealing with. 3 hours of research revealed that inheritance disputes involving questions of parentage were incredibly complex, especially when the deceased had made their wishes clear in previous versions of their will. More importantly, I discovered that financial elder abuse, including manipulating elderly relatives to change their wills under false pretenses, was a serious crime in our state. But legal action would be my last resort. I had something much more immediate and devastating in mind. I opened a new document and began typing everything I could remember from the conversation I had overheard. Then I picked up my phone and called the one person I knew I could trust. My best friend Marcus, who happened to be an investigative journalist for the city newspaper. Marcus, I need a favor, and it is going to sound insane. Those are my favorite kind of favors. What do you need? I need you to help me investigate my own family. 2 hours later, Marcus was sitting in my living room with his laptop, a legal pad, and the kind of focused intensity he usually reserved for political corruption stories. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, he said, adjusting his glasses. Your sister has been systematically undermining your relationship with your grandfather to position herself as the sole heir to a multi-million-dollar bakery empire. Your parents are supporting this plan. And they are using the fact that your father might not be your biological father as leverage to keep you quiet. That about sums it up. Do you want to know the truth about your parentage? I considered this carefully. Eventually, yes. But right now, I want to focus on the business manipulation. The personal stuff can wait. Marcus nodded approvingly. Smart. Emotions make people sloppy. What evidence do you have? Currently? Nothing that would hold up in court. But I have a plan to get some. I explained my idea. Marcus listened without interrupting, occasionally taking notes, his expression growing more impressed as I outlined each step. Raven, this is either brilliant or completely insane. Possibly both. Those are often the same thing. You realize that if this backfires, you could lose your family completely. Marcus, they were planning to steal my inheritance and use family secrets to manipulate me into silence. I think I have already lost them. He studied my face for a long moment. What do you need from me? Research. I need to know everything about the bakery business finances, any legal issues, tax problems, anything that might give me leverage. I also need you to look into inheritance law and elder abuse statutes. And I need you to help me document everything properly so that if this goes legal, I have a solid foundation. Consider it done. What else? I need recording equipment. Professional quality, completely undetectable. For what? I am going to Friday's family meeting. The one where they plan to convince grandfather to change his will. Marcus stared at me. They will never let you attend that meeting. They will if they do not know I am there. I explained the layout of my grandfather's house, including the study where all important family business was conducted. The room had been built in the 1950s and had never been updated with modern security features. More importantly, it shared a wall with the library, which had built-in bookcases that created perfect hiding spots. You want to hide in the walls like some kind of spy movie? I want to document exactly what they say and how they say it. If they are planning to lie to an elderly man to steal my inheritance, I want every word recorded. And then what? Then I am going to give them exactly what they asked for. They want me out of the family business? Fine. They want to exclude me from family gatherings? Perfect. They think I am not committed to the bakery legacy? They are about to learn just how committed I can be. Marcus leaned back in his chair. You are planning something specific. Something big. I am planning to save my grandfather's business empire from people who would rather destroy it than share it. How? I smiled for the first time since that morning. By giving them exactly what they think they want, and then watching them realize they have no idea how to handle what comes next. Over the next 3 days, Marcus and I worked 18-hour shifts preparing for Friday's meeting. He researched the legal and financial aspects while I focused on logistics and equipment. We discovered several interesting facts about the bakery business that I was certain my family did not know I knew. First, the business was struggling more than anyone realized. Online reviews had been declining steadily over the past 2 years due to outdated recipes and poor customer service training. Revenue was down 18% compared to the previous year, and 2 major commercial contracts were up for renewal with competitors already circling. Second, my grandfather had been quietly consulting with business modernization experts for the past 6 months. He had been researching point-of-sale systems, online ordering platforms, and social media marketing strategies, exactly the kind of innovations my family had dismissed as unnecessary. Third, and most importantly, there was a clause in the current version of my grandfather's will that my family apparently did not know about. If any beneficiary was found to have attempted to manipulate him into changing his bequests through deception or coercion, that person would be automatically excluded from any inheritance whatsoever. By Thursday night, I had everything I needed. Professional recording equipment that Marcus had borrowed from his newspaper. A complete dossier of business information that would prove my knowledge and commitment to the family legacy. And a plan that would either restore my rightful place in the family or burn their scheme to the ground. Last chance to back out, Marcus said as he helped me test the equipment one final time. No, I replied, adjusting the tiny microphone hidden in my jacket. They declared war on me the moment they decided I was not really family. Tomorrow, they find out what happens when you underestimate someone who has nothing left to lose. Friday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that usually filled me with optimism. Today, it felt like the universe holding its breath before a storm. I had barely slept, running through every possible scenario and contingency plan until my mind was sharp as a blade. The first part of my plan began at 6 in the morning. I drove to the original bakery location, the one my grandfather had built with his own hands in 1962, the one that was supposed to be my inheritance. I used the key I had kept from my teenage years working weekend shifts, hoping desperately that the locks had not been changed. They had not. The bakery was empty and quiet, filled with the lingering sense of yesterday's bread and the promise of morning pastries that would not be made for another 2 hours. I moved through the familiar space, remembering summer mornings when grandfather would lift me onto a flour-covered stool so I could help measure ingredients for his special cinnamon rolls. But I was not here for nostalgia. I was here for ammunition. In the back office, I found exactly what I was looking for, the financial records that Melody had been hiding from our grandfather. Sales reports showing the declining revenue, customer complaint logs that had been growing thicker each month, and most damning of all, a series of emails between Melody and Dad discussing their plan to streamline operations by cutting staff and reducing ingredient quality to increase profit margins. I photographed everything with my phone, making sure to capture dates and signatures. Then I found something even more interesting, a folder marked expansion proposals, rejected that contained detailed business plans I had submitted over the past 3 years. Plans that had been marked as impractical and too risky but were now covered in handwritten notes in my father's handwriting, notes that said things like implement after transition and good ideas, wrong person. They had not rejected my proposals because they were bad. They had rejected them because they wanted to implement them without giving me credit. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, equipment test successful. Are you sure about this? I typed back, more sure than ever. Phase 2 begins now. The next stop was my grandfather's house. Not for the meeting, which was not until 2 o'clock, but to plant the recording equipment and, more importantly, to have a conversation that was long overdue. Grandfather answered the door himself, as he always did. At 87, he was still sharp, still dignified, still the man who had built an empire from flour and determination. Raven. What a wonderful surprise. Come in, come in. I was just making coffee. Actually, grandfather, I was hoping we could talk. There is something important I need to discuss with you. His expression grew more serious as he led me into the kitchen. This was the room where he had taught me to bake, where he had shared stories of building the business, where he had always made me feel like the most important person in his world. What is on your mind, sweetheart? I took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth. Grandfather, I know about the meeting this afternoon. I know that Dad and Melody are coming here to convince you to change your will. His eyebrows rose slightly, but he did not seem surprised. And how do you know about this? I overheard a conversation. But that is not the important part. The important part is why they want to change it. I spent the next hour showing him everything I had discovered. The declining business performance that Melody had been hiding. The customer complaints that were going unaddressed. The financial projections that showed the bakeries would be out of business within 5 years if nothing changed. But most importantly, I showed him my business proposals, the real ones, not the watered-down versions that had been presented to the family meetings. "You wrote these?" he asked, studying the detailed market analysis and implementation timelines. "Every word." I spent months researching our competitors, analyzing our customer base, developing strategies to modernize the business while preserving everything that makes it special. "And the family rejected these proposals? They told you they were impractical and risky. But look at this." I showed him the folder of notes indicating they planned to implement the ideas after forcing me out. My grandfather was quiet for a long time, reading through everything with the careful attention to detail that had made him successful. Finally, he looked up at me with eyes that were both sad and proud. "Raven, there is something you should know. I have been aware of some discord in the family regarding the inheritance. That is why I asked everyone to meet today. I wanted to hear their concerns directly." "What kind of concerns?" "Melody has been suggesting that you are not committed to the family business. That you prefer your corporate job to working with the bakeries. That you do not understand or respect our traditions." I felt a flash of anger, but I kept my voice steady. "What do you think, grandfather? I think that anyone who could write business proposals this thorough and thoughtful understands our business better than anyone else in the family. I think that someone who took the time to research our competitors and analyze our weaknesses cares more about our success than someone who is content to let things decline slowly." He stood up and walked to the window overlooking the garden where my grandmother had once grown herbs for the bakery's special recipes. "There is something else, Raven. Something that I suspect is part of today's conversation." My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "Questions about your parentage. About whether you are truly part of this family." The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. I had been dreading this moment, but now that it was here, I realized I was not afraid. "Does it matter to you?" I asked quietly. He turned back to me, and his expression was fierce with love and determination. "You are the granddaughter of my heart, Raven. You are the one who listens when I tell stories about building this business. You are the one who asks questions about recipes and techniques. You are the one who sees possibilities where others see only problems. Biology is just science. Family is choice, commitment, and love." Tears burned my eyes, but I blinked them back. I had work to do. "Grandfather, I need to ask you for something, and you are not going to like it." "What is it?" "I need you to let them make their presentation this afternoon. I need you to listen to everything they have to say, ask all the questions they expect you to ask, and react the way they hope you will react." He stared at me. "You want me to pretend to be convinced by their arguments?" "I want you to let them think they have one. Because I have a plan that will expose everything they have been hiding, and it will only work if they believe they have successfully manipulated you." I explained what I needed him to do, and why. His expression shifted from confusion to understanding to something that looked remarkably like pride. "You realize this is incredibly risky? Everything worth doing is risky. And you are certain this will work?" "I am certain that the truth always wins in the end. Sometimes it just needs a little help getting there." He was quiet for several minutes, considering everything I had told him. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Your grandmother would have been proud of you, Raven. She always said that the best revenge was living so well that your enemies had to watch you succeed. This is not about revenge, grandfather. This is about justice. And about making sure that everything you built survives and thrives for generations to come. Then let us give them exactly what they think they want." At exactly 1:45, I slipped into the library adjacent to my grandfather's study and settled into the hiding spot Marcus and I had identified. The recording equipment was perfectly positioned, and I had a clear view of the study through a gap between two bookcases. At 2 o'clock, I heard the front door open and the voices of my father and sister as they greeted grandfather with false warmth and concern. The show was about to begin. "Would you like me to continue with parts 5, 6, and 7? The story is building to the climactic confrontation and the satisfying resolution. From my hiding spot in the library, I had a perfect view of the study where my grandfather sat behind his mahogany desk, the same desk where he had taught me to write my first business letter when I was 12 years old. My father and Melody settled into the leather chairs across from him, their body language confident and conspiratorial. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us, Dad," my father began, his tone respectful but urgent. "We have been concerned about some family matters that need your attention." "Of course," my grandfather replied, playing his role perfectly. "What is troubling you?" Melody leaned forward, her expression crafted to show reluctant concern. "It is about Raven, grandfather. We love her dearly, but we are worried that she is not the right person to inherit the original bakery." "What makes you say that?" The question was asked with exactly the right amount of curiosity and openness. "She has completely disconnected from the family business," my father said, warming to his theme. "She misses family meetings consistently. She has not worked a shift in any of our bakeries in over 2 years. Her focus is entirely on her corporate career now. And when she does offer suggestions," Melody added, "they are always about changing things rather than preserving what makes our bakeries special. She wants to add trendy menu items and modernize everything. She does not understand that our customers come to us because we maintain traditions." I watched my grandfather nod thoughtfully, exactly as we had planned. "These are serious concerns. Can you give me specific examples?" For the next 20 minutes, they presented a carefully constructed case against me. They described missed family dinners that I had actually never been invited to. They referenced business meetings where my suggestions had been inappropriate, meetings where I had proposed the exact innovations that were now written in my father's handwriting as post-transition plans. They painted a picture of a granddaughter who had abandoned her family legacy for personal ambition. "There is something else," Melody said, glancing at our father before continuing. "Something we discovered that might be relevant to inheritance decisions." "What is that?" "We found some old documents in Mom's things when we were helping her organize her closet. Medical records from when Raven was born." She paused dramatically. "Dad is not her biological father." The silence in the room was deafening. I watched my grandfather's face carefully, looking for any sign that he was breaking character. But he maintained perfect composure. "I see. And you believe this affects her position in the family?" "Not emotionally," my father said quickly. "We love Raven regardless. But legally, it might complicate inheritance matters. And practically, it explains why she has never felt the same connection to the bakery business that the rest of us share. She does not have the same blood investment in preserving what you built," Melody added. "To her, the bakeries are just a business opportunity rather than a family legacy." My grandfather was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands folded on the desk. When he looked up, his expression was grave. "If what you are telling me is true, then perhaps I need to reconsider some of my decisions." "We think that would be wise," Melody said, barely able to contain her excitement. "We want to protect everything you have built. We want to make sure it stays in the family and continues to honor your vision." "What would you propose?" "Leave the original bakery to me," Melody said without hesitation. "I understand the business inside and out. I have been working there since I was 14. I know every recipe, every supplier, every long-time customer personally. And I am committed to maintaining your traditions while gradually improving efficiency." "And Raven?" "A small cash settlement," my father suggested. "Enough to show that she is a valued family member, but not enough to give her control over business decisions that could harm the legacy." "How much were you thinking?" $50,000, Melody said. "Enough to help with a house down payment or pay off her student loans. Something meaningful but not substantial enough to create ongoing obligations or expectations." I bit my lip to keep from gasping. The original bakery alone was worth over $2 million, not counting the business goodwill and ongoing revenue. They were proposing to give me $50,000 in exchange for my grandfather's most valuable asset. This is a significant change from my current will, my grandfather said slowly. I had planned to leave the original bakery to Raven specifically because I believed she had the vision and education to modernize it appropriately. With respect, Dad, my father said, vision without commitment is just dreaming. Raven has vision, but she does not have the dedication to see it through. She would probably sell the bakery within 5 years to focus on her real career. Whereas I would never sell, Melody added. This business is my life. It is everything I have ever wanted to do. And you have specific plans for improvements? This was the moment I had been waiting for. Melody reached into her briefcase and pulled out a folder thick with documents. I have been working on some modernization strategies that would increase revenue while maintaining our core values, she said, handing him the folder. I watched my grandfather open the folder and begin reading. His expression remained neutral, but I knew he was seeing my business proposals with Melody's name on them, my research repackaged as her innovations, my solutions to problems she had never even identified. These are quite comprehensive, he said carefully. How long have you been developing these ideas? About 2 years, Melody lied smoothly. I wanted to make sure I thoroughly understood every aspect before presenting them to you. And you developed all of these concepts independently? Absolutely. I spent months researching our competitors and analyzing industry trends. I even took some night classes in business management to make sure I understood the financial implications. My grandfather closed the folder and looked at both of them. This is clearly something you have both thought about extensively. You make compelling arguments. Then you will change the will? Melody asked, unable to hide her eagerness. I will definitely need to make some adjustments based on what you have told me today. How soon can we meet with your attorney? My father pressed. I will call him on Monday and schedule something for next week. Should we tell Raven about this conversation? Melody asked. Let me handle that, my grandfather said. This is a delicate family matter that requires careful handling. They stood to leave, shaking hands and exchanging embraces with my grandfather. I watched them walk toward the front door, their voices carrying back to me as they congratulated each other on a successful mission. That went better than I expected, my father said. I told you he would see reason once we presented the facts clearly, Melody replied. By next week, we will finally have control of the business direction. And Raven will be out of the picture permanently. The best part is, she will never know what hit her. I waited until I heard their car doors slam and the engine start before emerging from my hiding spot. My grandfather was still sitting at his desk, but now his expression showed a mixture of sadness and determination. Did you get everything you needed? He asked without looking up. Every word, I replied, checking the recording equipment. They confessed to lying about my involvement in the business, they admitted to stealing my business proposals, and they explicitly stated their intention to manipulate you into changing your will under false pretenses. What happens now? I smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Now we give them exactly what they asked for. And then we watch their world crumble when they realize what they have actually done. The following Monday morning arrived with the kind of clarity that only comes after a storm. I had spent the weekend transcribing every word of the recorded conversation, organizing my evidence, and preparing for the most important presentation of my life. Marcus had helped me create a comprehensive dossier that documented not just the conversation, but months of financial manipulation and business mismanagement. At exactly 9 o'clock, I called my grandfather. It is time, I said simply. Are you certain you want to do this? Once we start down this path, there will be no going back. They made that choice for us when they decided I was not family. Now they get to live with the consequences. My grandfather had scheduled a family meeting for that afternoon, ostensibly to discuss the will changes that Melody and my father had requested. What they did not know was that his attorney would be present, along with a certified court reporter and a digital forensics expert who could verify the authenticity of my recordings. I arrived at the house first, carrying a briefcase that contained copies of everything. The recorded conversation, the financial documents from the bakery, the business proposals with my father's handwritten implementation notes, and a legal brief that Marcus had helped me prepare outlining the criminal and civil implications of elder financial abuse. "How do you feel?" my grandfather asked as we waited in his study. "Like justice," I replied. "Nervous but determined. Your grandmother used to say that the truth has its own power. Sometimes it just needs the right moment to reveal itself." At 2 o'clock, Melody and my father arrived, both of them radiating confidence and satisfaction. They had brought my mother, who looked uncomfortable but resigned to whatever was happening. "Thank you all for coming," my grandfather began once everyone was seated. "I asked you here today because I have some important announcements to make regarding my estate planning." "We appreciate you taking our concerns seriously," Melody said, glancing at me with barely concealed smugness. "Family unity is so important." "Indeed it is. Which is why I am particularly troubled by some information that has come to my attention." The atmosphere in the room shifted subtly. My father straightened in his chair. "What kind of information?" "Information suggesting that certain family members have been deliberately misleading me about other family members in order to influence my estate decisions." "I am not sure what you mean," Melody said, but her voice had lost some of its confidence. "Let me be very specific." My grandfather picked up a folder from his desk. "I have here recorded evidence of a conversation that took place in this very room last Friday afternoon. A conversation in which two of my children conspired to defraud me and manipulate me into disinheriting another child based on false information and stolen intellectual property." The silence that followed was deafening. I watched the color drain from my father's face as he realized what my grandfather was saying. "You recorded us?" Melody whispered. "Actually," I said, standing up slowly, "I recorded you. Every word of your little presentation about how I am not committed to the family business and how you have been developing innovative strategies to modernize the bakeries." I opened my briefcase and began placing documents on the conference table. "Here are the financial records you have been hiding from grandfather, showing declining revenue and increasing customer complaints. Here are my original business proposals, the ones you claimed were impractical and risky. And here are photocopies of those same proposals with Dad's handwriting all over them, planning to implement my ideas after you successfully stole my inheritance." "Raven, you do not understand," my father began. "I understand perfectly," I cut him off. "I understand that you conspired to convince an elderly man to change his will based on lies. I understand that you stole my intellectual property and planned to profit from it while excluding me from any credit or compensation. I understand that you used false information about my parentage as leverage to keep me quiet about your scheme." "Your parentage is not false information," my mother said quietly. "It is true that your father is not your biological parent. And I understand that too," I replied calmly. "What I do not understand is how you thought you could use it to manipulate me into accepting theft." My grandfather stood up, his presence commanding immediate attention. "Let me make something very clear to everyone in this room. Raven is my granddaughter in every way that matters. She is the child who listened to my stories, who asked intelligent questions about the business, who took the time to develop thoughtful proposals for improvement. Biology is irrelevant when it comes to family love and business acumen." "But Dad," Melody protested, "you do not understand how disconnected she has become. She never participates in family events. She does not work in the bakeries anymore. She has priorities that do not include us." "I have the recording of your conversation," my grandfather said coldly. "I heard you admit that she was never invited to family meetings. I heard you acknowledge that you rejected her business ideas not because they were bad, but because you wanted to implement them yourselves after excluding her from the business." "We were trying to protect the family legacy," my father said desperately. "By committing elder financial abuse?" I pulled out another set of documents. "Because that is what this legally constitutes. Lying to an elderly person to manipulate them into changing their will is a felony in this state. Stealing intellectual property is a civil offense that carries significant monetary penalties. And conspiracy to defraud is something that could result in criminal charges for everyone involved. The room was completely silent except for the sound of my mother quietly crying. "What do you want?" Melody asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want exactly what you tried to take from me," I said. "I want my rightful inheritance. I want credit for my work. And I want an acknowledgement that your behavior was unacceptable." "And if we refuse?" I smiled, and this time it was genuinely pleasant. "Then I take these recordings to the district attorney's office. I file a civil lawsuit for intellectual property theft. I contact the state elder abuse hotline. And I make sure that everyone in our business community knows exactly what kind of people they would be dealing with if they worked with you." "You would destroy the family business out of spite?" "I would protect the family business from people who were willing to destroy it for personal gain," I corrected. "The only question now is whether you want to be part of the solution or part of the problem." My father looked at Melody, then at my mother, then back at me. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Full restitution. Public acknowledgement of my contributions to the business. And a formal apology. In exchange, this matter stays within the family." "And the inheritance?" My grandfather answered that question. "The inheritance remains exactly as I originally planned it. Raven will inherit the original bakery and have the opportunity to implement her modernization strategies. Melody will inherit the other locations, assuming she can demonstrate that she can manage them ethically and effectively." "This is not fair," Melody said, but her protest sounded hollow even to her. "You are right," I agreed. "Fair would have been including me in family decisions from the beginning. Fair would have been giving my ideas honest consideration instead of stealing them. Fair would have been treating me like family instead of an obstacle to your ambitions." I closed my briefcase and stood up. "You have 48 hours to decide. After that, I take this evidence to the authorities and let them sort it out." As I walked toward the door, my grandfather called after me. "Raven?" "Yes?" "Your grandmother would have been proud." "I know," I said. "And that is all the family approval I need." 2 days later, I received 3 phone calls that changed everything. The first was from Melody, her voice small and defeated. "We accept your terms." The second was from my father, asking if we could meet to discuss how to move forward as a family. The third was from my grandfather's attorney, confirming that the original will would remain unchanged and that all parties had signed agreements acknowledging my intellectual property rights and contributions to the family business. But the real resolution came 6 months later, on a bright spring morning when I stood in the renovated original bakery, watching customers line up for our new signature items. The gluten-free options that had been dismissed as trendy nonsense were selling out every day. The social media presence that had been rejected as unnecessary had attracted hundreds of new customers. The updated point-of-sale system that had been called too complicated had streamlined operations and increased efficiency by 30%. Marcus walked in carrying 2 cups of our new specialty coffee, a blend that paired perfectly with my grandmother's cinnamon roll recipe. "The quarterly reports came in," he said, handing me a coffee. "Revenue is up 47% compared to the same period last year. Customer satisfaction scores are the highest they have been in 5 years. And you have a waiting list for people who want to franchise the concept." I smiled, looking around at the bustling bakery that had become everything I had dreamed it could be. Modern efficiency combined with traditional quality, innovation building on heritage rather than replacing it. "How are things with your family?" Marcus asked, settling into the corner booth where we held our weekly business meetings. "Complicated," I admitted. "Melody and I have found a way to work together professionally. She manages the traditional locations, I handle modernization and expansion. We are not close, but we are civil. The business is thriving, which benefits everyone." "And your parents?" "Dad is trying. He apologized, sincerely I think, and he has been making an effort to include me in family decisions. Mom is processing everything. She feels guilty about the parentage secret and the way they handled it. We are taking it one day at a time. Any regrets about how you handled everything? I considered this carefully. 6 months ago, I might have said yes. The nuclear option I had chosen had definitely blown up some relationships, possibly permanently. But looking around at the thriving business, at the employees who now had job security and growth opportunities, at the customers who were genuinely excited about what we offered, I knew I had made the right choice. No regrets, I said finally. Sometimes the only way to fix a broken system is to break it completely and rebuild it properly. Speaking of rebuilding, Marcus said with a grin, I have some news. Remember that investigative series I was working on about family business corruption? The one inspired by my situation? That is the one. It won a regional journalism award. And more importantly, it has helped 3 other families expose similar inheritance manipulation schemes. One of them resulted in criminal charges. I felt a surge of pride and satisfaction. My painful experience had helped other people protect their families and their legacies. There is something else, Marcus continued. I got a call from a literary agent who wants to talk to both of us about turning this story into a book. Apparently, there is a real market for stories about family business drama and inheritance justice. Are you serious? Dead serious. She thinks it could be part memoir, part business guide, part legal thriller. How to Protect Your Family Legacy from Family Predators was her suggested title. I laughed, imagining Melody's reaction if our story became a published book. That might be taking revenge a little too far. Not revenge, Marcus corrected. Education. Prevention. Helping other people recognize the warning signs before they lose everything. As we talked, I noticed an elderly gentleman approaching our table. He looked familiar, but I could not quite place him. Excuse me, he said politely, are you Raven? The owner? I am. How can I help you? My name is William Chen. I own a chain of restaurants in California, and I have been following your story through the business journals. I wanted to meet you personally. My heart stopped. Chen. The name I had been forbidden to use, the family I had never known. I think, he continued gently, that we might be related. Your mother was Sarah Chen before she married, was she not? I nodded, unable to speak. Sarah is my niece. Which would make you my great-niece. I have been looking for you for 26 years. The world tilted sideways. I had spent so much time fighting for my place in one family that I had never considered I might have another family entirely. I know this is overwhelming, William said, pulling out a chair and sitting down. But I wanted you to know that you have family who have been wondering about you, hoping to meet you, wanting to be part of your life if you are interested. How did you find me? Your business success has been covered in several trade publications. When I saw the name and the story about inheritance battles, I started investigating. It took some time to confirm the connection, but here we are. Marcus kicked me gently under the table. This is definitely going in the book, he whispered. I looked at William Chen, this unexpected uncle who had sought me out just when I was building a new understanding of what family meant. Then I looked around at the bakery filled with people enjoying food made from my grandmother's recipes, implemented through my innovations, supported by my grandfather's love and my own determination. Would you like to try my grandmother's cinnamon rolls? I asked. I think she would have wanted me to share them with family. His smile was warm and genuine. I would be honored. As I went to get the cinnamon rolls, I thought about how strange and wonderful life could be. I had started this journey feeling like I was losing my family. Now I had a business that was thriving, relationships that were healing, and family I had never known existed. But more importantly, I had learned that family is not just about blood or legal documents or inheritance rights. Family is about the people who support your dreams, who stand by you when things get difficult, who celebrate your successes and help you learn from your failures. I had Marcus, my chosen brother who had helped me fight for justice. I had my grandfather, whose love had never wavered despite biology and manipulation. I had employees who trusted me to provide good jobs and fair treatment. And now I had William, representing a whole branch of family I had never imagined. The best revenge, my grandmother had always said, was living so well that your enemies had to watch you succeed. But I had discovered something even better than revenge, the deep satisfaction of building something meaningful with people who truly cared about each other. Have you ever had to choose between staying quiet to keep peace or fighting for what you knew was right, even if it meant losing people you loved? I would love to hear your thoughts about family loyalty versus justice in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life drama stories. Share this video with anyone who might be dealing with family business conflicts or inheritance issues. Sometimes knowing you are not alone makes all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the family that chooses you is stronger than the family you were born into. Keep fighting for your truth, keep building your dreams, and never let anyone convince you that you do not deserve a seat at the table you helped build.